Okay, my name is Ty McCarley. I'm doing my final report for Macroeconomics, Terra State Community College. Carlo Duran, instructor. The topic I chose is investment in the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act that was signed into law. They call it the IIJA. This is the second video I've done that I'll be putting on YouTube. The first one's for the class as well. I chose this topic mainly to find out about it. It was in the news quite often, and I just really wanted to know more about it. I haven't had time to, so this afforded me the opportunity to do it. When Biden first introduced it, he introduced it as a $2.2 trillion bill, and the way that he was planning on paying for it was a huge corporate tax, income tax. That's always the answer that they give. Oh, we're going to tax the corporate. We're going to tax corporations, the top 2% or 1% or whatever they always say. And it always turns out being BS. But that's how it was introduced. And they introduced it as a bipartisan. Every time you hear about this bill, it's considered bipartisan. I will tell you that it was introduced H.R. 3684 to the 117th Congress. That's when it was introduced on 6/4 of 2021. The House passed that bill in a very short amount of time, less than 30 days. And it was there were both sides of the aisle that voted for it. It was I think all the Democrats voted for it. I don't remember the exact number, but the vote did pass. It wasn't an overwhelming majority passing like they said it was. It passed 221 to 201. So 48% were actually against it. But then it did go to the Senate and it passed much more overwhelming. It was a vote of 69 to 30. So it was much more popular there. It was presented. Well, it passed the House in 7/1 of 21 and passed the Senate of 8/10 of 21. So they heard this through. And then it was presented to Biden on 11/8. And then they had a big media fanfare on the South Lawn where he signed it and everybody rah-rahed him. And again, always talked about, when they talk about it, it's all bipartisan. Again, it really wasn't as bipartisan as they try to make it sound in the news. It became law number 11758. It is a 1,039-page law that I did skim through. No, I did not read the whole thing. It's written as a law. If anybody's ever grabbed an ORC book in Ohio and looked at it, and it's written in gibberish, lawyer speak as I call it. So you basically read through the main points, and then you get through all the lawyer speak, and then you go to another main point. The original bill that was brought to them was 2.2 trillion, and it was trimmed down to a measly, what the media says, 1.2 trillion. The addition I seen on some other economists' pages was less than a trillion. Actually, it was more like 900 million, or 900 billion rather. Sorry. It is, though, $550 billion of new spending, new jobs, new programs, completely brand new. There were a lot of rules and stipulations that they put in place for it, guidelines, rules. Some of the things they were looking for needed to be innovative. They needed to be resilient. Resilient is all throughout this bill. They're worried about resiliency. That's a word that I don't think I've seen used as much as I have around this bill. But I had a hard time finding explanations of how they were going to pay for it. We didn't get a brand new corporate tax as was originally touted, but I did get some explanation. What they're saying is like 210 billion is going to be repurposed from the COVID. So they're repurposing 210 billion from COVID. However, they're still not finished paying for all the COVID stuff. So I don't know how they actually got that money. There's still applicants being processed, still being submitted and processed for COVID money. But they're going to use 210 billion of that allocated COVID to pay for this. Sounds sketchy. 51 billion from delaying Medicare Part D rebate rule. I don't know what rule it is, and I don't know how they have the authority to go ahead, hey, we're just going to delay that. But they're going to do that. 56 billion. Here's one that I have highlighted. 50, and the numbers are why. I went strictly with numbers when I went through all of this. But 56 billion in economic growth resulting from 33% return on investment in these long-term infrastructure projects. Remember that 33%, because that's a misguided number. 28 billion from applying information reporting requirements to cryptocurrency. So basically, all the stuff they're going to charge all you people that like to trade crypto, they're going to pay for this bill from that. There's a bunch of other gibberish in here. It doesn't make sense. I didn't get into looking at that. That's something I will look into later because I still want to know about it. Like I said, there's new spending. 550 billion. 550 billion is broke down over 5 years' time, though. They're not getting all this money at once, and all these programs, they have rules. They need to be set up and so on and so forth. But it is over 5 years, so it's going to start a program, fund a program, get it on its feet in its baby walking stages, and then have some money for a couple years for operating. After that, who knows? Maybe the programs die. Some of these I hope not, though, because I'll tell you, when I initially got into this, I thought this was a bunch of fluff, a bunch of people getting a bunch of money that didn't deserve it, and I did find out differently. But as the bill states, it's for infrastructure. Some of the main topics they hit, I'll go through all of them real quick, but most of these are grant-based monies as well. They have to apply for it, and they have to be used for certain things. There's good rules for it. But road resurfacing, bridge maintenance, as we hear on the news all the time, our bridges are going to fall down, or we got 500 million bridges in the U.S. and they're all going to fall down, blah, blah, blah. And they're not wrong. I mean, I've been across some bridges that are in bad repair. I know you guys probably all have as well. This addresses some of that. So this is putting people to work on the ground, fixing roads, fixing bridges, all kinds of infrastructure. Railroad was a key hot item on here. They're pushing for rail, and they keep talking about this Northeast corridor, which I don't know what it is, but it's in the bill several times. They're really worried about this Northeast corridor. If you watch my introduction video, you know about me, and this is what I do. So let's see. There's $110 billion for bridges and road servicing, railroad and both passenger and freight, 66 billion. Safety, I didn't look into it. Safety is 11 billion. Just safety. Public transit, 39.2 billion. There's all kinds of areas of public transit that they paid attention to. Here's one that I didn't look into that I will. $65 billion for broadband. Now, what they're telling me is rural communities and poorer communities can't have broadband. They don't get broadband, so they're going to give them $65 billion to get them broadband. And there was actually some lawyer speak in there about under income families and getting free broadband and all this other stuff. But here's the thing: $65 billion for broadband seems to be a fluff number. Because I was just out in the middle of nowhere, Texas, driving through, and I didn't lose service. Maybe one time between Texas and New Mexico, between Dallas and Area 51, lost service like one time, and that was really in the middle of nowhere. There were no houses, there were nothing but windmills and oil rigs for tens of miles. I wouldn't say hundreds of miles, but tens of miles. And I had phone service, so I'm not sure why we need to put $65 billion into broadband. Maybe somebody you watching this video can figure that out and let me know. But they focused on waterway and coastal infrastructure. That was $16.6 billion that they're putting towards that. These are all new areas, by the way. Airport improvements, $25 billion. Drinking water infrastructure. That was a big one, $55 billion. Drinking water infrastructure. So in Ohio, we've all heard about Flint, Michigan. The nation's heard about Flint, Michigan, but Ohio and Michigan know about it a little bit more. And that place still isn't right. But there's $15 billion specifically in that provision for lead pipe removal for the Drinking Water Act. And this also included the $23.4 billion of a drinking water act that they already approved. So the money kind of meshes together. But I mean, I think that's a good thing. But $55 billion, I don't know. Power and grid, $65 billion. We've all heard that we're weak, we're vulnerable. Power grids, we can be attacked. Well, at least if you've ever listened to a conspiracy theorist, you've heard it. Resiliency, again, $47.2 billion. Now, I didn't break that all down, but it's talking about some cybersecurity and all this other stuff, making sure what we already have in place is actually going to last. So some of that stuff, the little bit I glanced over, was pretty good. Clean school buses and ferries. They want electric school buses. Yeah, that was pause for effect. Electric school buses. Listen, I'm all for clean energy, but come on, the amount of that this bill pushes the electric, because there's a whole section in there for grid and new power stations and blah 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 and electric this, electric that. Find out who in power has investments in lithium batteries or battery making or battery reprocessing, which there's very little of those. Find out who has money in that. Your current administration has a lot of interest in that. But I'll leave that for you, because I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist. This is just me doing my report. Reconnecting communities, $1 billion. They're talking about communities that got divided by a highway. They want to fix that, and they need $1 billion to do that. Do you really think them people care if they're neighbors? If they wanted to be neighbors, they can walk around? I don't know. I didn't look into it enough. That's not one I chose to actually delve into. Legacy pollution. You've probably been hearing this. Orphan wells, mines, gas wells. They're already there. Why do we need $21 billion to put plugs in oil wells that we don't use anymore? I don't understand that. If it's an oil well, it's owned by somebody. Hold them accountable. We don't need to, as taxpayers, they've reaped the rewards from that oil well. They need to be responsible for the cleanup. I don't need to do that. The person that made the money off the oil needs to do that. But $21 billion for that. Western water infrastructure, $8.3 billion. They want to reroute more water and fight droughts and do all this. Man thinks they're smarter than Mother Nature, but $8.3 billion for that. There are about 100 new programs in total. Some of the good ones, the broadband stuff, yes, I get some of the building of it. Lead pipe removal, that's definitely a good one. The bridge investment, come on, none of us want to see a bridge fall down and people get hurt or die. The most programs overall in one group went to the DOT, and that is probably the road resurfacing and bridges and everything else that goes along with that. The new programs do have to establish rules and be initiated. They're estimating that's going to take 6 months to 2 years. So they're getting this money to build the program, and some people will start to get hired, and it's just going to be a slow process for all the new programs. I mean, Rome wasn't built in a day. We're not going to start a new program tomorrow and get it all funded and ready to go. Couple of key things. This is the largest investment in public transportation in U.S. history. That's just numbers wise. It's the largest it's ever been. And we've done a lot over the last 200 years, but we haven't kept it up very good. You guys up there know roads suck in Ohio. There's all kinds of money that was allocated for looking for better ways of doing that, not having potholes because the pavement's better. There's all kinds of research and stuff, but anyway, it's also the largest investment in rail since the introduction of Amtrak. I honestly don't know when Amtrak was, hey, let's do a train, and let's do a passenger train. It had to be a long time ago. But this is the largest investment that the U.S. has made since then. New programs put an emphasis on innovation, resiliency, and they also did an emphasis on national and regional significance. There was a lot of forethought in this bill. I can't say that for every bill because I haven't read them, but this one, I like I said, my initial instinct was this was a load of crap. It's a bunch of wasted money, this the typical grumpy old man stuff. I did it. But after I read it and I got into it and I learned There was some forethought in it. I don't agree with everything. You're going to hear about one here in a little bit that I think is bonkers. But they're using this formula they call PROTECT. It's promoting resilient operations for transportation efficient and cost savings transportation. It's a formula, and I don't know the exact formula, but they're calling it PROTECT. And they're using that to determine the appropriation for DOT funds. I think a lot of it was structured toward electric vehicles. And that's just where our government's putting their money. Toyota's putting their money on hydrogen. Check out the new hydrogen engine that they've got going on. But our government's putting their money in electric. Like I said, find out who's got interest, financial gains to be made from lithium mining. Find out who's got money to be made from that, and find out who's making the laws. So one of the small tidbits that I found that's getting a substantial amount of money, it's not in the billions, but it's still over 300 million. I don't remember exactly what the number is offhand. I think I have it in my notes, and I'll tell you as soon as it comes up. But it's a wildlife crossing safety initiative. It's a brand new program. Wildlife crossing. So when I read that, I'm like, what are we gonna do? Teach deer where they can cross, and they have to wait for the hand signal to go walk across the highway? How's this? How is this? What the hell is this? So I got into it. I dug into it, and it's based off of a wildlife vehicle collision reduction study that was done and presented to Congress in 2008. That set off more alarms for me. This was presented in 2008, and we're now gonna fund it in 2022. What the hell is going on here? So there's all kinds of red flags for me on this one. But the study that they based all this off of was done by Western Transportation Institute in Montana at Montana State University. The study is very thorough, very encompassing. I read the study that they reported to Congress. Very encompassing. Data from many sources, and crash analysis from the national database, and they broke all the statistics down into lanes and times and age of drivers, conditions of roadway, and all kinds of stuff. There's all kinds of stuff that they took in, and it was a full, thorough analysis to do this study. They reported at that time there were about 300 accidents a year, 300,000 accidents a year involving car and animal. And they expected that to grow. It grew from 1994 at 200,000 to 2007-ish when they pulled the numbers to 300,000. I don't know what other factors there were there, but it did grow, so they anticipated it to grow more. And I didn't look up to see if it had. But most involved deer, and the next highest was moose. And living in Ohio, we've all hit a deer. We know what it causes. It causes car damage. Sometimes it tolls the car. Other times you get a dent. I know I've hit a car and it busted a plastic fender, and I never fixed it. And if you haven't hit a deer yet, you probably just moved to Ohio. So, it'll happen, like probably next week or something. But anyway, revolving those, 5.6 of those accidents reported human injury. 5.6 of the 300,000. I didn't do the math because 5.6% is a very small number. So anyway, the average cost of an accident, and this included medical costs, was about $6,000. So $6,000, and only 5% are causing humans to be hurt. It's a bit peculiar that we're going to stick $350 million into it. But anyway, that study looked at ways to influence wildlife behavior. They mean by fencing in roadways, overpass, underpass. I don't know if you guys have seen bridges or underpasses made for wild animals. I've seen several of them. They also looked at reducing population. I was like, really? Reducing population? They mainly talk deer. And we do that anyway. We like eating deer jerky and deer sausage. I mean, it's good. I'm gonna say it's good. They also looked at modifying driver behavior, use of signs, designated roadway construction or alternative routes, building highways in a different way because of animal population, whatever. Improvement in sight lines and planting of vegetation that will actually keep, the animals away from the road. Some of the mitigations that were studied, because they looked at all this information, and then they actually had studies done, and studies were done by various groups throughout the country. A lot of them were up in the northern part, Montana, Utah, or not Utah, but anyway, up there. I think some in Canada. But also Nissan is doing some of them also as well, because some of the systems were like vehicle warning systems in the car. Netherlands, I know from reading this study, has a roadside that is notified if an animal is detected. They got animal detection near the roadways, and if it's detected, then this sign pops up and says, slow down, hey, slow down, go this speed. Nissan was looking at it, doing it in car. Hey, animal detected. Don't know where that has led, but they were looking at it. They also, sorry, driver alert, this roadway lighting, wider striping. I don't know where wider striping is, but reflective collars for animals. I read that, and I'm like, so we're going to go around and put collars on deer now, I see. Deer. Obviously, they're talking about pets, but yeah, let's just leave it alone. Reduce speed limits. Nobody wants that. We all want to go faster. We all do go faster. Who obeys the speed limit? Unless there's a cop on the road. But these studies were done, like I said, by various groups. And abroad, like I said, Nissan. But this is what they based this money off of, that they've put in this bill. This 2008 study. Who's still in Congress from 2008 that really has a passion for Animal Crossing? I mean, nobody wants to hit the deer. We're not aiming for the deer. And I don't think the deers are all committing suicide. It just happens. We're invading their land, and we're driving right through their homeland. It's gonna happen. And I don't want it to happen, but we're not ever gonna get rid of that. And I don't think sticking a bunch of money into a lost cause is a wise idea. The reasons for the money being spent, better vehicle safety, human safety from injury and life loss. There were, 0.4% that involved loss of life, and my assumption would have to be that they tried to avoid it, went down into a culvert and died. I don't know. Or, the moose up there, they come into the windshield because they're so big when you hit their legs. But I mean, it's just the percentages. We don't want that to happen to anybody, but we can't stop life from happening, and that is part of life happening. Anyway, some of the other lower transportation costs, meaning insurance savings, like they'd ever give us a break on our insurance because we no longer hit animals. I don't think that would happen. But it is a reason that could happen. So that would be the reasons for. Reasons against spending money. Again, I kind of been throwing them in there. It's not really that expensive. It's on average $6,000. Now, if you total your car and it sucks, that's what insurance pays for. We're agitated because we got to get a new car, and it's a pain in the ass for a few weeks because we're driving around. Stuff like that. Yeah, it's not nice, but first world problems, right? I just don't think it's worth spending my tax dollars on this further study of it. A very small percentage of human injuries, and even very smaller percentage of loss of life. We have more people dying on the streets, freezing to death, homeless, than are losing their life in an animal crash. This is just the $350 million could be put to better use, like our homeless problem. I mean, there's people in California who have full-time jobs and can't afford a house because the housing cost is stupid out there. We could combat that. I mean, that could be 15 houses bought for people that have jobs. I'm joking. It's a joke. The main reason that my objection is for this is the safety burden that they're looking at could be put into the private industry just by a few regulations. A few regulations could make automakers figure out how to do the animal detection stuff. Hey, You got to figure it out. We're putting this animal detection equipment on the roadways where we have problems, and you got to figure out how to make it talk. Hey, put it on the automakers. They're making all the money. Put it on the insurance companies that don't want to pay out. A little bit of better engineering and pre-thinking about where we put our roadways in the future. Put that on the states. To states. Hey, don't just throw that road there because you got some free land. Let's look. Is that a good place to put it? I mean, there's other ways that we could do it. That's all I'm saying. Wildlife crossing safety. It struck me and I had to look into it. And the more I looked into it, the more I thought it was just a bunch of fluff money going to somebody's kid that needs a job, so now he's ahead of this or what. I don't know. I'm speculating. It's all speculative. My frustration coming out, my grumpy old man. So this is economics class. Let's talk about how this bill that I just went over does affect us in macroeconomics. So the bill was a twofold. It was to rebuild the infrastructure, and while doing that, it was to create jobs for the new stuff that we're going to try to do better. So creating jobs is good. That's good for our economy. New jobs, better economy, better economy, creates more purchases, or more jobs, more purchases, better economy. That's good for our economy, which will increase the GDP, right? That's what we want. That's the main goal. That's what we're trying to do here. The bill is projected to support 772,000 jobs. So, that's a lot of jobs. That's a lot of jobs. That's a lot of people staying employed. Good luck finding people to hire because nobody's out there to get a job. Apparently everybody has a job or two and they can't go get another job because nobody can hire anybody. The Joint Economic Committee, this is another plus, and this dates back to the 33% that is going to pay for the bill. What did I tell you earlier? $56 billion in economic growth resulting from a 33% return on investment from these long-term infrastructure projects. That's what it says. That's how it's going to pay for it. The Joint Economic Committee studies state the U.S. infrastructure yields up to 17% return on investment. So how does that Joint Economic Committee have this information, but we're going to fluff it over here and say that's how we're going to pay for it? Anyway, economists believe that the bill will address supply chain. Obviously it will. Better roads, newer roads, better conditions, supplies can get there. It also was talking about the railway heavily, so better railways, more railways, get goods to and from. So we'll address the supply chain. Supply chain's good. They say in time that will reduce inflation. If it reduces inflation or inflation pressures, that's a good thing. Yeah, it's not reducing them right now. We need to hurry up and get this stuff rolling, don't we? The infrastructure investment is a non-cyclical and offers stable and predictive cash flow, which means we know what it's going to do. We spend the money here, we know what it's going to do. The road's going to last this long. The bridge is going to be better for this long, so on and so forth. It's predictable. We know. The infrastructure is a long-term investment as well, so that's a good thing. It's going to continue to help us long-term. As long as we can keep it up this time, maybe it'd be better, right? The resiliency aspect of it that was talked through all throughout will hopefully help us keep this up. And I know I'm rattling on, so I'm going to get to the end here. And basically, it's what did I learn from researching this bill? A lot. More than I'm going to tell you, but a lot. I still love good cigars and good bourbon. Cost of the infrastructure. At first glance, it seems like a lot of money. I'm looking at these numbers and I'm like, look at all these billions. Look at all these billions. I really? So doing a little research into to what it costs, I found, had an itch. There's Raleigh, North Carolina. One of the things I found, Raleigh, North Carolina, city I love, lived in, worked in, great city, love it. There's a 2.3 mile stretch that they're widening sidewalks and doing bike lanes in. 2.3 mile stretch. In 2013, it's been, the reason I found it is because it's been put on pause so long for inflation, which is another thing I'll talk about. But it was budgeted at $31 million to do this in 2017. $31 million. So the cost from 2017 until now, that's probably more like $50 million or more. So what I did learn is how much this stuff does cost. And I broke something else down. So the Amtrak Office of Inspector General, they received from this bill $27.5 million a year. And I'm thinking that's a two-person office. It's a guy and a secretary, and they got $27.5 million a year. So I had to look it up. Well, it actually employs 100 people. So if that office gets $27.5 million a year by 100 people, that's $275,000 a year per person just in salary. Now that's a good salary, right? I'm sure that's not all for salary, by the way. But that's not anybody getting rich off of. You know, I'm sure the Inspector General's in this salary and the Secretary's in this salary and all the way in between. But they do investigations, they have office supplies, all kinds of stuff adds up. $27.5 million a year for that office of 100 people is probably not that much money. It just adds up real quick, especially with the inflation that, you know, this bill's supposed to keep from happening. I did learn also something that I think all Americans just overlook. If our government wants to get something done, they can get it done. This was written, passed both houses, House and Senate, and was on his desk in about 9 months' time. But the wildlife crossing came in 2008, and we're just now getting to it. If they want to get something done, they can get something done. I think we as Americans need to hold them to that. And not accept what we've been getting, because it's not right. That's not right. The stuff that happens, the stuff that takes so long to get done, the stuff that they let go on. And that's exactly what they're doing. If they want to get something done, they get it done. And I also learned something that I don't like, that the government operates on this future income, this possible future income. Kind of learned it in class and the readings and whatnot, but I really learned it doing this, with how they're going to pay for it. They're operating on future income they don't have, and they're spending all this money before they have it. I mean, if anybody looks at our deficit number that continues to rise by the second, and our Social Security program that they keep borrowing from and never uncontrollably borrowing from and never repaying, you know, and they keep threatening that it's going to go away, it's going to go away. Yeah, it's going to go away because you keep borrowing from it. Yeah, we need to get that intact. We've got to do something. I don't know what, but we've got to do something. I'm not an economist. And I learned, most importantly, to actually look into things. As I stated in the beginning, this bill was one that I thought was a bunch of horse pucky. And it's just a bunch of people getting a bunch of fluff money, you know, golden hammers and golden toilets and all this other crap that they didn't need. But it's not. It's really not. And it really is going to put a lot of people to work. And as much as I don't want it to be good because of the administration that touts it, it is a good bill. It really is. There's some fluff in there. There's no doubt. There's things that we could have cut a little bit more of, but it did start out as 2.2 trillion and got down to what they called 1.2 trillion, and actually is more like 900 billion. So they did okay on this one. It's too young yet to actually tell if any of the stuff's going to work. That's the one thing I regret. Should have picked something older to see if it actually worked. I can't tell you. It looks like it's going to. It's not helping it's not really in place yet, so I can't say that it's causing the inflation, because it's not. But the inflation isn't helping this bill, that's for sure. But we're at over 30 minutes, so I'm going to cut this short. That is my macroeconomics final report. And hope I didn't bore the life out of you. I hope I was able to inform you of something you didn't know. Thank you very much. Ty signing off.